Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, we'll introduce you to a man who is walking his talk and living out his faith through something called Jabez Trust. We'll explain next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, my father and brother are both ministers, and so I'm drawn to people who live out their faith and wear it right there on their sleeve. And my next guest, Frank Snell with Jabez Trust, does exactly that. We met at a luncheon about a month ago, became fast friends, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. He goes by Brother Frank. So for the rest of the interview, we're going to call you Brother Frank. So let's first start with, what is Jabez Trust?
Jabez Trust was formed about 21 years ago as a for-profit benevolent trust that we earn money through enterprise activities to be distributed to worthwhile organizations, ministries, etc.
Yes. We're going to pull up the website because you've been doing this for a while, and I had to look up in my Bible Jabez, because so Jabez is a figure in the Bible, but it's not. He's not a figure that everybody knows.
Right.
So tell us more about Jabez.
Jabez is an obscure figure in the scripture that a gentleman wrote a book about. The Prayer of Jabez is a title book, a small book. And as we read that book 22 years ago or so, and I was working on a large business venture, I decided to set up a for-profit benevolent trust to use the resources that would be generated from that activity. And that's how that came about. Jabez himself was, the scripture says he was honorable more than his brothers. And he prayed a simple prayer. And it's just one verse. Basically, it says, "Lord, bless me indeed, enlarge my territory, may your hand be with me, keep me from evil, that I may not cause pain." Well, the word Jabez means pain because his mother bore him in pain. And so that's the reason she named him Jabez. Now, there is a lot of challenges, but Jesus bore the pain for us. So if we stay connected with him, the pain that would normally be in our lives is already paid for if we will just rest in his provision.
Yes. We're going to pull up the book that you were talking about because you can get it on Amazon. It's called The Prayer of Jabez. What was it about this particular passage in the Bible that touched you, Frank?
It was just after reading the book, all the different elements. It's not just enlarging the territory from a material standpoint, but also from a spiritual standpoint. Whatever God has ordained for you to do and to be in this life, that book expanded the concept and the idea of not just working for material goods, but doing something that will be eternal, maybe in our lives, in our families' lives, and in the lives of other people that God gives us the opportunity to be associated with as we move on this planet.
Sure, and I can tell you're in this phase of your life where you're really trying to give back. You've done very well in your business life, and now this is the finest season of your life where you're actually giving back.
Well, that's, you can't take it with you.
Right.
As someone said, you haven't seen a U-Haul behind a hearse lately because whatever was left, no matter how wealthy a man is, he's left it all. And so what we do now here for the purposes that God has ordained, those are the things we send before us in eternity. And one man has said, the size of your mansion will depend on the material that you sent ahead for the workers there to put together.
Sure. And you had a phone call right before we went on the air with a gentleman who is doing some work. Why don't you describe the work he's doing and how Jabez helps fund that?
He heads up our ministry category of Jabez Trust. There are 12 categories, by the way, and ministry is one of them for the spiritual aspect, for goods and needs, etc., that falls under that category. I call him a one-man army because he goes into the hardest parts of the 1040 window of North Africa, Asia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, all in that region where he goes in and ministers. He has a network of small house pastors, I guess you'd say, in many cases. And there'll be thousands of people that will come to know the Lord because of his ministry, because he goes places others don't go.
Yes. And I know something you're very passionate about is passing out these little pocket scriptures. Will you hold one up and show us what you're doing these days?
This is a bilingual Gospel of John that is distributed at the border presently. On one side of the page is English. On the other side of the page is Spanish. We believe that we may not be able to change the government's activities at the border, but we can do something that may influence and help the people that come across. And they may be better people if indeed they take to heart what's in this Gospel of John. We are working with an organization that's 130 years old. It's called the Pocket Testament League, and 9 months ago I'd never heard of them. But they've been doing this for 130 years, and in the last 3 years, they have distributed pocket testaments of the Gospel of John, 10 million per year, all over the world in every country except North Korea, and they're trying to get in there. It just was a miracle of God that we were connected with them, with the vision that the Lord shared with me about putting the Gospel of John in the classroom in America now that we have the legal right to do that. We also have English copies of this in all sorts of interesting covers, if you will.
Sure.
And it's in 37 different languages. But on top of that, a video has been developed for the Gospel of John, chapter by chapter, and a QR code on the back of each one of these Gospels. You open that QR code, it takes you to an app for the Pocket Testament League, and then you can download the video, and anyone that has a cell phone or smartphone can look at the Gospel of John. You can read it in your own language, or you can hear it in 17 different languages. By the way, that's been downloaded over 3 million times in the last 24 months in the 1040 window area, and 600,000 times in Iran.
Wow. Well, even the casual Christian knows Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Yeah.
What is it about the Gospel of John that's special?
The Gospel of John just hits the nail right on the head. The first 5 or 7 words just obliterates most of the woke stuff that's being put out today. And it introduces Jesus for who he was, what he did, and who he is now, and how he can impact not only our lives individually, but also impact the world, which he has done.
Yes. So we've got about 2 minutes left, Brother Frank. I want you to end with some closing remarks that will uplift the people who are watching this, because I think there's a lot of chaos in the world and people feel somehow out of control. How is it that, everybody can make a difference, can't they?
We just come off the holiday season where Isaiah prophesied 500 years before Christ came. He said, his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. And He is. If you're in distress or stress, He can bring peace and does. I personally experienced it 48 and a half years ago in my bedroom by myself, crying out because I was in such distress and turmoil in my own soul because of the circumstances I was going through. And when I cried out, it was like my whole life and being was changed. And I've never turned back. I've never looked back because He now has invaded my life and my heart to the point that I want everybody that wants to or will to experience the joy and the peace that He brings.
Wow, what a great Christmas message. Thank you, Brother Frank, for sharing it with us. We're going to end with the website, which is jabeztrust.com. Brother Frank, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.